Hello, everyone. This has been a wonderful opportunity to kind of invite people that I know who I've gamed with, and so the last time I spoke with Bruce and Aaron about conventions and how conventions, the pros and cons of being a GM at conventions. And so today, I am very pleased to say that I'm with Raldanash, who is also a Raldanash Rollenspiel. And so
He's been practicing that.
Frank, yeah, so Frank is with us, and we also have Phil, and Phil has the Dark Orb channel, and I know that you have a little moniker at the bottom of it, and I think I cut it off. Your
He's got it on his T-shirt.
do you
Is that
have
what you mean?
Oh, I've got there were a couple.
so
So
what does it say underneath the Dark Orb?
on this logo, we
Yeah.
have Devious Dungeons, Foreboding Forest, and the Coolest Cats, which is the tagline for
Oh,
um, stuff.
yeah.
The current one is Dark Narrative Role Playing in the Digital Age,
That's the
Ah,
one.
yes.
which we
Yes.
sometimes do,
which
occasionally.
which is cool. So my hope today is to pretty much encourage some of you who are tuning in and watching that you too can get into the hobby of podcasting and streaming. And so I'm gonna just preamble this with some numbers.
Oh
So
dear.
Don't do
I'm
it.
gonna start.
I don't want to hear them.
I'm gonna start with myself. So I looked this up today, and I saw that I have 398 followers. I have 120 videos. I started January 2019, and I've had 26,000 views of some sort, whatever that algorithm means. So the Dark Orb has 749 followers, 176 videos. April 2020. So we basically started more or less around the same time, a year
Yeah.
later. And you have 62,000 views. And then we come to Frank, who we spoke
He started last.
offline about Frank being more consistent, but he has 1,370 videos. I think if you count today,
Videos.
371. Yeah, or no, 370 followers, 1,370 followers, and
There we go.
300 videos.
Right.
That's
So
better.
Yeah.
301 videos. And then you started in October 2013. So you were like the grandfather
Why you
here
say that?
today.
Where did you get that number from? 2013.
I got that from your, I think I got it from your your English
YouTube.
channel, and from YouTube, from your English channel, and then
Okay.
the German channel I think was 2000 or 2001, if I recall.
Yeah, I think it actually.
22
Yeah
actually.
and no. Yeah. I mean, but the first video I posted was in my English channel was just about 5 years ago. 5 years and a few days.
Oh, okay, so there you go.
So pretty
So
much the same
it's
as us then.
I'm slightly behind you two, actually.
Oh, well, there we
I might
go.
have set up the account beforehand because I was watching stuff, but I didn't actually post anything or stream anything at all up till 2020, October 2020.
7 years of cat videos.
Yeah. So you have
Yeah.
so your German channel has 383 followers,
Uh-huh.
255 videos, which means that it's almost up to your English videos. And there was a bit of a hiatus this year, so that's probably the difference. You did start in May 22 with your German channel, and you've had 40,000 views on your German channel. So
Yeah.
there's no competition with the numbers, but it gives those who are watching kind of an indication that none of us are kind of the big boys or girls of the internet. We're not the big, super popular places, but we certainly have people who are interested in our videos and interested in what we put out. So I guess the first question is for Frank, and we'll kind of go back and forth. But Frank, how and like why did you get started putting videos up? What was your inspiration? What was your motivation to do this?
I mean, it was sort of was a meeting of opportunity and interest. The opportunity came because around that time, you may remember, we were all working from home a lot. So I was teaching from home a lot. Every basically from lockdown day 2, we were teaching all our lessons online. I'm a teacher. And at my school, it was really like from one day to the next, every lesson was online. So I had to start getting my setup ready. Yeah. Beforehand, I didn't have a decent microphone. I didn't have a decent camera. I didn't have decent lighting and stuff. So I had to get to grips with that. And then I had only, I think 2019 or something, got back into the hobby of role playing after a long break. And I had a group and we wanted to run a campaign. And all of a sudden I had time, but we couldn't meet. So we started exploring ways to play online. And that was, for example, when I started looking at various online platforms and tools. And I thought, okay, rather than just doing actual plays, one of the things I want to share is basically what I've discovered how you can play online. So a lot of my early content especially was about Foundry. And that's really what got me into this, to say, okay, there's a platform here. People don't know how to use it yet. Lots of people want to do it. Let's share some insights that I've gained. And then the actual plays came a bit later.
Wow. So, Phil, how did you get into this bizarre type of streaming broadcasting that you're doing at the moment?
Excuse me. Yeah, not entirely dissimilar. I had already been working from home before the beloved pandemic hit, and yeah, so we'd been kind of gaming online once that happened, and before that all occurred, I think I actually got chatting with Doug from Victory Condition Gaming, and so at some point, and I don't remember the trigger for it, but because I'd been a huge fan of Kickstarter, and the ADHD and autism kind of leads you to this kind of rabbit hole of wanting lots of different things. Like I'm going to microfixate, and I'm going to microfixate on all of the stuff.
Yeah.
So I became quite passionate and interested in Kickstarters. Doug from Victory Condition and I were talking about that, and he invited me onto his then very regular online show on a Friday to talk about Kickstarters.
Oh, okay.
And so that's how it started. And real life kind of caught up, and Doug was less available to do that sort of stuff. And I had kind of gotten the bug at that point, having kind of guests presented on his show. And so I decided to pick up the baton. So we started off with Kickstart Your Weekend, and the majority of the older footage is a Friday night where we talk about things that I think are really cool on Kickstarter and other
You made me spend
crowdfunding.
a lot of money, can I just say, Phil?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I empathize, but
The Phil level.
the fill level is the oh shit, I've just bought everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to miss out, right? Because
That's right.
ADHD, yay.
Yeah.
And so I did that a lot. And I'm not quite sure when that started to kind of tail off, but certainly there was an element of burnout on that side. But we also started to look at actual plays, and actual plays are really fun, but they're a kind of a pain to organize, especially live, but they're really rewarding. And of course, interviews as well. So yeah, the
Yeah.
interviews is the thing that I think has really helped my channel, but we can come back to that. But yeah,
Yeah.
so gaming online, already working from home, so I had some of the setup, massively over invested in equipment, which you don't need to do, by the way. You do not need good equipment in order to do this.
This is
And then
my
spent, yeah,
second
exactly.
microphone, which I'm not using anymore because I've got a
But just
better
in case.
one.
Ooh, matching. But it's also a great way to, again, fixate on things that are massively over and above. So I spent a long time just using a decent quality webcam. And yeah, microphones and the audio is the bane of recording online and
Yeah.
streaming online.
Well, we'll get to that in a second
Yeah,
because believe
absolutely.
me,
I'll
I
shut up now.
spent 4 hours today making sure that this worked, and I have a backup. For you who are watching, I don't know Phil other than on Discord occasionally, and just recently we kind of interacted with messages. But
That's
I'm
right. Yeah.
kind of a fan in the sense that I know who Phil is because every time my YouTube algorithm prompts me for things other than cat videos, I get the hat. And so
Oh,
the hat, I
amazing.
see the hat and I say,
Just the
"Oh,
hat.
I know who that is." And I didn't even realize that you were actually on the same one of the discords that I spend most of my time on.
Yeah.
And so you don't really know a lot about me. So briefly, I I guess I've been playing D&D forever. Every edition from the beginning, and I was obsessed with everything. And so I bought everything 5e up until about I guess it was the starter set or the replacement starter set that came out, and I actually had a friend go to the States to Target to get it. I forget
I think
exactly.
you'll find it's pronounced Target.
Yeah, Target. I think Target has gone out of business, but it's so I was very very keen, and at the time I was starting to do videos in 2019. So this is a year before COVID hit,
Yeah.
and I just always wanted to put something out, and I always wanted to play something online. And I was obsessed at the time, and my obsession before that was buying board games. So I have
Yeah.
way too many. I have 400 board games, and all of which are just gathering dust. And I wanted I wanted to share my love of the hobby, but at that time I was watching videos. So I'd watch all of the D&D stuff. I've watched the stuff um uh with Critical Role. I remember watching their absolute first episode and watching stuff from Adam Coble when he was doing things for Wizards of the Coast, and uh, and D&D Beyond, and so I was interested in all of this stuff, and then all of a sudden I came to this epiphany. I guess around the first few months of COVID when I realized that uh, broadcasting was much more difficult. And I didn't have any high speed internet. I just had dial up, essentially. And because I live in a very rural area. And so I couldn't do what I knew I could do. And so it would take something like 14 hours to upload a YouTube video. And I tried some things and fell on my face and learnt by failing forward. And I think how I got to know Frank was because of Foundry, because I wanted to use Foundry. And I remember, and it's odd because next week we'll be starting Forbidden Lands, but
Hmm.
I remember Frank doing a video on Forbidden Lands for Foundry. And I think
Yeah.
that was where I discovered him.
18th
And
November 2020.
so there you go.
That's
And so it became more of a labor of love. And as I in my profession had to gather up increasing equipment to do the same as Frank did, to have better quality equipment. And then finally I got Starlink, and then Starlink went away because a year later Bell Canada finally decided that it was time to put in fiber up. So now my everything is fine. But it was a love, but it was a love that I found took an awful lot of time and an awful lot of
Mhm.
energy to figure out what's my voice. And I guess that's my next question to you is how have you found, or how have you struggled with what your purpose is? What's your voice? Has it changed since you initially started to broadcast stuff? Obviously, with Phil, he said that it did, but Frank, did it?
First of all, have I found my voice yet? Don't know.
I'm not sure I have either.
But has my purpose changed? Now, I don't think there's a higher purpose to this, really. Has my focus changed? Yes. At the beginning, I was discovering Foundry. I was sharing that. My focus was Foundry. Yeah, and the things you could do. And because I love the free league systems, if you look at my, as I'm just currently doing here on the screen, at my old videos, there's like Foundry and Vaesen, Foundry and Simba Room, Foundry and Coriolis, Foundry and Forbidden Lands. So that's what I was doing. And I've gone away from that a little bit because I think people don't need as much help with it anymore. There's so much documentation, the system has become easier. And because you can only speak about the same games for so long, yeah, it has drifted away. But those videos remain very, very popular. So I tried a few other things since. So for example, I've done a few interviews initially with Foundry developers because I found that really interesting. Yeah, to see, oh, okay, why did you make this choice? Why did you do this? What is it like to develop a Free League Foundry system and so on? They're still on the channel.
You had a
Didn't
very
get much
good interview
traction.
with Paul Watson, and I remember.
Yeah, for example, there's Paul
Yeah,
Watson. There is Patrick, who did the Forbidden Land system. There's the guy, I can't remember his name, Simon, I think, who did the Rivers of London system. So I've got a few of those. But one of the most enjoyable things was the interview with the Effect Matthew about the Kickstarter, yeah, Tears of the Old West, about the system. That was a really good one. That was at the UK Games Expo 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that, even though the sound.
well, it was
speaking of
really
it being
nice
the
because
bane
you
of-
were sitting on on sofas or chairs, and it was a
Yeah, we were
very
just down in the hotel. In the
yeah,
Hilton, so
it was really nice. I remember that one.
that was really nice. And then in the same event, I interviewed Bruce about running the game. So they were really enjoyable, the face-to-face interviews. I don't often get the chance to do that. So a lot of the other stuff I've been doing since is like, oh, here's my setup, or oh, here's an actual play. So it has drifted a bit, but I think the most popular videos were actually those technical help videos, which are relatively short, especially if you keep it under 15 minutes. People are very likely to click on them. And then you got the the actual play, which sometimes are 2 hours, 3 hours, and you get a drop off after 30 seconds. You have so many people still watching you, and you just say, "Oh dear!" But there are people still watching to the end, and
Yes.
that is really rewarding. I mean, just now because you prompted me to, I looked again and looking at the longer term view figures on some of the actual play series. Yeah, Wesen in Harlem, 1,400 people watched that. Not bad.
No.
Yeah. Icewind Bane, 2,500. Shadow of the Weird Wizard, 3,000. Blade Runner, 4,700. The playlist, yeah? It's not just one video.
Yeah.
And you just think, those numbers are not bad, are they? So people are still watching the actual play, or maybe listening to them. But it is a very different proposition to doing an interview or to doing a technical tutorial. Yeah.
If,
But I also quite enjoy saying, okay, here's my new stuff that just arrived. Let me show it off.
yes.
Yeah.
Phil, so when you switched from that Friday night Kickstarter kind of enthusiasm and realizing, I guess, oh, wait, maybe I need to focus on something else because of my bank account or something, or space. How did you envision what you would do? Did you kind of look at other people like Frank and others who were doing things, or did you just say, "Oh, I've been doing this with Doug. I have people that I can play with," and
I mean, that's a great question, and I think looking back, some of the challenge that we had with Kickstart Your Weekend is really the niche of it, in that we were streaming live on a Friday evening, and throughout COVID and probably the first 18 months after COVID, most people had the Friday evening free. So whilst not a huge live audience, we'd see probably 20, 30 people actively online and probably 10 of those actively engaging, which made it much more possible to actually have that kind of fire under your butt and actually create that
Yeah.
content. And when you're trying to do a live show and there's nobody there, it's actually much harder. And obviously, the more of a large audience you have, the more likelihood you're going to have of live participants. But also, it comes down to planning and routine, so that people can actually, if they want to, put your content into their daily routine, which is very difficult. So I just you asked whether or not kind of your focus or whatnot changes, and I don't think mine has. But what I've tried to do from the very beginning is to only talk about things that actually I can get excited about. So when we're in this status now, or this state now, where there's not a lot of originality anymore in role playing. So, I mean, one of our mutual friends and one of the patrons, Bruce, in our Discord, I think it was only today, I think it was Bruce, basically said, "Oh, look, another folk role playing game,
Yes.
folk horror role playing game." And
Yes.
it's like, yeah, that's just it. It feels like Kickstarter right now is Mothership modules, folk horror role playing games, and 5e expansions, because everyone wants to have a 5e hack where you can learn to be, I don't know, robotic vacuum attendants or something. I need to be excited about what I'm doing. And so as long as that is there, then it's easy for me. So
Yeah.
having conversations with publishers like Free League or even independent publishers, if they're building something that I actually can get passionate about, then I'm all over it. Likewise with actual plays, I find it really hard to run a game if I'm not excited about it. And to be honest, finding players that want to play the games that you want to run that's still really difficult. And that then also have
Wasn't
the
it?
equipment. So yeah,
Yeah. It was one of the reasons to go online, because you've got a much
yeah,
bigger pool for niche games.
that's the
But
theory.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just, we have the Blood March coming up. In German, I helped a little bit with the translation of that book. And so the guy who's the editor basically said, "Oh, do you want to do an actual play when we actually launch it in November? At the end of November, that's when it goes on general sale." I said, yeah, I'll do that for you. And I've been looking for 2 weeks for players, and I just need 4 players.
Yeah,
I've got 2.
yeah.
It's like, come on, guys,
I
can't
tell
be
you what
that
though,
hard.
I love online gaming with 3 players. I find that's for me that's a sweet spot.
3
For
or
a couple,
4.
well, I find for a couple of reasons. I think from a visual perspective, having 4 people on the screen is much easier. It's just you've
Okay.
got that symmetry, depending on whether you're sharing other assets and stuff as well. But yeah, for me, I find it quite good for allowing everyone to shine.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's impossible. There were some games that we tried to find players for months, and unfortunately, you find people who want to play but haven't got the time,
Yeah.
or people who have got the time but don't have the equipment.
What equipment
Yeah,
do you ask them to have? What's the expectation? Might be an interesting point as well.
a half decent webcam and actually use headphones, ideally. Because
Yeah.
the software I use is not great at noise cancellation. I'm using Zoom now, which helps actually quite a lot. But up until recently, I wasn't using that.
Zoom does a lot of the leveling for you as well.
Yes.
Yeah, which is great until you want to do funny voices, which we discovered when we did the recent recordings for Pirate Borg. The first episode went
Oh
up
yeah,
last week.
you've talked like a pirate.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fine. But when you start doing kind of mutanty voices or, kind of rickety old man voices, Zoom decides that you're not a real person anymore. So our
Okay.
GM struggled with that. But yeah, I forgot what the question was now. I'm sorry.
No, well, no, that was awesome because
Equipment.
Equipment. Yeah, yeah.
talking about equipment and the expectations of what people
It's
should
not a lot.
should have. Yeah.
No. And I think also there's a huge difference if you want to get into this and you actually don't have the courage to run a channel and take on that responsibility, then join a community where you are encouraged to participate, like the communities that you both have, like the Dark Orb, and just put your head above the parapet and say, "Hey, I want to play a game," because No, ultimately, worst case
Or even
scenario.
if you want to run a game and you say,
Oh,
I can't be
absolutely.
bothered with all the tech, yeah?
Yeah, yeah,
Get
yeah,
in touch, and I'm
yeah,
sure
yeah,
lots of people would say, yeah, yeah, of course,
yeah,
I'll run the tech for you.
yeah.
Maybe I want to play, but I'll run the
It's
tech
much
for you, and
easier
you run the game
to
on the
play as
channel.
well. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely.
I find that when I'm playing with people who have poor sound or video issues, and this is pointed at myself as well, and maybe this is also because of being on the spectrum, that it it's kind of disorienting,
Yes,
and
Grating.
yeah,
for internet especially.
yeah, and it's unfortunate because a lot of the people who have these problems are absolutely wonderful people who are really genuine about playing.
Yes.
And I guess my experience primarily has been with Frank and playing with Frank. And it was actually Frank who got me into playing actual plays because he invited me because of a Discord server that we share. And I know that I've kind of, I guess, lowered my expectations of
Because
not
of me.
only, well,
Thanks.
no, but no, but I mean it in the sense that for myself, I realize that I'm, I want to have fun.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter if the video, cuts out or a person goes or whatever with the messy bits. It just happens. And for those who have like these channels which are so steady and so just bang on, they've put a lot of work and effort and years and
Mm.
consistency into what they're doing. But they also have a little troop, and
Yeah.
that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, I mean, I know a lot of channels who run basically with a tech person. So they've got
Yes.
Yes.
somebody who's just managing the tech and looking at the chat and maybe doing something on the chat there and
Yeah.
posting
An
on
active
socials while the
producer.
other people are playing.
Yeah.
I don't have that. I try to
No.
do everything at the
Yes.
same time. That can trip you up a little bit. So if anybody's volunteering to be a stream moderator, then please do get in touch.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I do a lot less live content these days because there's such a large margin for error when you're recording compared to when you're streaming. And there are things that we kind of touched on before about audio, but there are things that can happen during a live stream that you just don't notice. And if no one's really watching, they're not going to tell you. And then you go back and find that it wasn't what you were hoping for.
Yeah, I
So,
don't know. I don't want to write roughshod over your agenda, your plan.
No, no, no,
But yeah,
no.
there are definitely lessons to be learned. For example, I use my Streamlabs software these days. I use Prism for lots of time, but I want to have money now to remove the watermarks, so I sort that.
yep.
So there's an option to always record your stream.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 So in case something goes wrong with the upstream or whatever, at least you're still recording it. At least you still have
Yeah,
something to
exactly.
show for it at the end. And doing the audio checks at the beginning to just say, have I actually remembered to unmute myself on the stream?
Yeah.
Been there before.
All of that sort of stuff. There's a lot of learning by doing or learning by failing, really.
Yeah.
You know, by hitting those problems, falling over
Yeah.
them, picking yourself off the floor again and saying, okay, I now avoid that.
Picking yourself back up is the difficult bit, to be honest
Yeah.
with you, because all it takes is kind of one bad session for you to think, oh, I'm terrible at this. Why am I even bothering? That was a waste of a day or something.
Actually, I didn't say this on the broadcast with Aaron and Bruce, but 2 weeks earlier, we had an absolutely delightful hour and a half conversation, which was completely different from what we had when I recorded it, and I put it online. I was so proud of it. I just thought Aaron and Bruce just were shining with their advice, and I just came away from it feeling awesome. I put it up on YouTube right away, not checking it, just knowing, hey, I heard them, everything's fine. And a friend of ours, Dido, uh, wrote me immediately, said, Douglas, I can only hear you. I can't hear anybody else. And so I took it down. And that night, I just was in deep despair
Yeah.
and was ready to say, screw this.
Yeah.
And it's happened to me a number of times. And I always seem to say, you know what? The enjoyment that I get out of doing this is greater than the disappointment. And
Mm.
so I keep on, I say, I'm still trying to find my voice. But I think that it's difficult in this milieu anyway to find a voice when the meta, to use the kids' word, is constantly changing. So Kickstarter starts to become old and boring. And then there's another new and shiny. In board games, you'd always be talking about the new and shiny because you'd buy something because you'd think, oh, maybe this is better than, whatever the game was. This is going to be better than Catan, or this is going to be better than,
Right.
Settle, or whatever. I don't know,
It's not going to
Yigo or
get better
Five
than Catan,
Tribes
I'm
or
afraid.
Root or whatever. And I think the same is true for the hobby with role playing, is that we're looking and we're thinking, oh, this is going to be better than. And recently, I've really kept myself in check. I've moved over from American publishing over to more European publishers for a number of reasons. But I just like to support smaller companies. And Free League, I would not say is small, but in
Not
comparison,
anymore.
they are.
Mm.
We look at things and we say, well, I'm hoping that it's going to be better than, but then it is its own thing. And so trying to be,
Mm.
for me, trying to be a online person who's excited about something, realizing that there are those who are pining for, say, the old Coriolis, but the new Coriolis is out, but the new Coriolis isn't as good, or it's better, or whatever. And there's this constant kind of tugging, pulling and
But it
pushing.
sure is pretty.
It sure is pretty.
Yeah, mine's up there. I haven't opened it yet.
Yeah, and I just think that one of the responsibilities that we have as people who are reviewing products and putting products out there and things that we love, whether it's actual plays or reviews or interviews, that there's a responsibility that we have to be sensible about the way that we review. We should be equally as excited, but also these are the cautions, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be, for you or not. Like I didn't find Invincibles for me, but there are
Me
going to be
neither.
people who are going to love that game.
Yeah.
And I guess that there's a certain amount of weight to what people say. So do you ever think to yourself that there are people like me who are watching you, and I'm being absolutely sincere. I will watch you to look at a game review or an interview to hear what you've asked and what the response is, and I will judge whether or not I buy something based on that. Does that ever kind of register with you that your voice, even as small as you may think it is actually that powerful?
Phil?
Phil?
I think, yeah, because I mean, this is why I am very deliberate in what I'll look at because I guess I'm looking to be convinced that it's worth my money.
Mm.
And I try and be, especially with Kickstart Your Weekend, I try to be really open about whether or not it's something that I would spend my money on. And that's why I say things like, as someone who's on the spectrum, would I actually go the full level? Would I buy the most expensive thing, or
Mm.
actually would I just go for a PDF? That makes it was made a lot easier in my own personal decision making because I try to look only for things that are different from what I already own. So I'm not necessarily going to grab an alternative space exploration game if I've got Coriolis the Grey Dark, because that pretty much covers it off. But I might look at Astro Arcanum because that's kind of similar to something like Degenesis, but set in space. So yes, I am mindful of that. But also on the flip side of that, because I want to try and be as optimistic as possible and not spiral into this dark kind of
Orb.
overly critical, negative, dark orb. We do dark gaming, but I try and be the opposite of that. I try and be really positive. So I do go out of my way to try not to be too critical in a just shitting on something for the sake of it sense.
Yeah.
I would rather just not draw attention to something if I don't think that it's worth looking at. So that's my approach. If I'm talking about something, it's something that I already think looks pretty cool. And if
Yeah.
going through that I realize that I disagree with that, then I'll say it.
I would echo that actually. I mean, I don't look at stuff that doesn't interest me. No, I mean, it hasn't happened recently. It's been a few years ago, but I had like a contact from a publisher over in France, for example, saying, "Oh, do you want to look at our product?" And it's this thing where we've got Arthurian mechs fighting against each other. It's like King Arthur, but they're all in mech suits.
Yeah.
And I just looked at the graphic style once and said, "Nah, just I have no connection to that. There's no interest, so I can't make a video about it to just seem interested, just to get it out there."
Exactly.
For me, it wasn't worth spending the time on, if that makes sense. So it needs to be something where I say, yeah, this is cool, or this connects to something, or it's interesting enough for me to actually open up and look into it. There's plenty of interest out there for me. I don't have to waste my time on stuff I'm not interested in. Yeah. And that's the same on the German channel. So if you consider do you know what the big game is in Germany, the big role-playing game, you too?
Hexen?
Seeing as you don't have the German background.
Is it Hexen?
Hexen is relatively small, actually.
Is it?
Probably number 5 or 6. or something.
It's Dark, what's it?
The dark something, yeah.
Yeah.
The dark
Orb.
orb, no, the dark,
The Dark
eye.
Eye? Yeah.
Das schwarze Auge, as it's called. That's the big one.
The Dark
I
Ogre?
bounced off that hard in about 1985. And I don't look at it, but that rules me out, for a lot of things. But I'm just not interested. They have an overly complicated 3D20 for every single check you do. And anyway, don't want to get into that. But basically, I would also say I really filter. If I make a video about something, it's something I'm genuinely interested in. And to use the example of Invincible, initially I thought, don't know, doesn't sound like my sort of game, superheroes. Started looking at the quick start, and I thought, oh, there's some really clever stuff in there. I like this. I like this.
Yeah.
Looked at the TV series a little bit for our one shot that we ran, and I thought, okay, not the best superhero stuff, but give it a pop. Give it a pop. The rules were interesting enough, and the graphics design was interesting enough. But then after our actual play, I think after I stopped pause on the stream because it was a slightly negative comment, I just said, nah, this is not for me. But I didn't want to share that. I wanted to show the game. I wanted to show this is the content, this is how it plays. But I didn't want to badmouth it or anything. That was not in my interest. I just wanted to provide information about it. And it had been interesting enough for me to look at. But
I think Invincible's a great example as well, because I don't play superhero games, and I've actually fallen out of love with Year Zero engine as a system, so I don't play it very often. But there are reasons for that, and it's really more in terms of the large dice pool chucking, and it feels like a high failure rate. Statistically, it's not, but there's like a subjective kind of feeling of high failure, which you'd kind of manage as a GM by rolling only when it really matters. But quite often the rule books actually suggest you should roll pretty much for everything. But I loved the TV show, and therefore I thought the game would probably be pretty interesting. For my channel, the interviews with people like Thomas Herenstam actually drive viewer subscribers quite well. So things like the Blade Runner and Alien videos had huge impact on subscriber counts. So with my business hat on, those are the things that I need to do more of to grow the channel. And so interviewing Thomas about Invincible was strategically the right thing to do, and I was also genuinely interested in it. But I ended up only backing it at the $3 to get on the backer kit level, partially financially and partially
Mm.
because I realized I'm kind of interested in playing this. I'm definitely not interested in running it.
Yeah.
And
Sure, but
so,
our actual play was entertaining. At least that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just
Douglas said they're not very good.
oh, well. the having the contacts to be able to get somebody like Thomas in front of the microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I haven't contacted them yet about. I mean, in theory, I've got like Niels Carlin, and on my Facebook list because I did some translations of the first edition Coriolis stuff.
Yeah.
So we talked a bit. So I might be able to, but I haven't dared do that yet. You know them.
And that's a courage thing. Once you know what you're trying to communicate and what the message is that you're trying to convey and how you want things to come across, then it's worth doing. But you need to really understand, and this comes back to what Douglas was saying earlier on, what your voice is. And for me, and I should also say that part of the reason I started this channel is because I wanted to improve my presentation skills professionally.
Yes.
Very useful.
And that helped with that. And for me, when it comes to interviews, I try not to do interviews. I try to do kind of like a fireside conversation.
Yeah.
And I've had so much initial negative backlash on that, which was
That's
really
so
surprising.
weird because
Yeah.
From whom? The interviewee? Or the
No,
audience?
from the audience. I had quite a few negative comments saying that wasn't an interview, that was a chat. You know, you talked as much as the other person did. And I'm like, well, yeah, but that's what I want it to
My
feel
voice.
like. I want it to feel like actually we are connecting
Yeah,
because that's
exactly.
what this is all about.
Yeah, I agree.
right.
I agree, and I think that a number of points came up. One of which is I think that it's really important for the person who's watching this at this point, if you've stuck around, that Frank, you're monetized now. I don't know, your cup of coffee, I think, for the month doesn't even pay for all of the stuff that you have for everything. Because if you think about all the stuff you have to pay for, like your audio visual, like Forge, like
Zoom, Forge,
and yeah. So,
Midjourney.
but you're questioning, should I approach Thomas? Should I ask for an interview? And I think that there's something very endearing about that, because it's not as easy to just think, oh, I can go and do these amazing things and interview people. I remember, and this jogged my memory, I remember a specific interview with Thomas and someone else. I'm not going to say what the game was, but there were a couple of people who were on that kind of list of people who were just asking questions. It was almost like a mini Zoom meeting with like 5 odd people asking questions. And one person totally derailed the entire interview or opportunity for Thomas to speak. And I remember shutting it off afterwards and thinking, oh my gosh, how does this happen where an individual takes over a conversation about something? And so there's a responsibility to engage everybody, but it should be just like a regular conversation where at some point you say, it's Phil and Frank's turn.
For instance.
For instance.
Oh, we're allowed to talk now?
So what are the pros are the excitement and the enjoyment. So what are the cons?
You already
Want
hit
me
on
to
one
start
of
on
them.
this one?
Yeah, Frank,
yeah.
because you put
The cons. Now, one of the things, if you start streaming stuff and you look up some streaming technology stuff, you just keep getting lots of advice on how to stream. And it always says you need to be consistent. Have a particular slot when you're always online and so on. And that's actually can be quite hard. Especially if you wanted to, we talked earlier, don't make a video if you had nothing to say. It's what I would say. Don't just make a video because it's Thursday evening. Yeah, and I think I said that to Douglas at some point. I said, I only make a video if I've got something that I actually want to talk about. So consistency. So I can't rely just on Twitch, for example. Yeah, because Twitch really thrives on regularity. But YouTube is video on demand. So yes, regularity is good because if you get something out every week on YouTube, then people know to look for it and when they have their viewing slot. But it's much more forgiving because you can actually say, okay, I record it whenever I want to, but I release it or schedule it to release on YouTube for a certain time slot. But that's actually one of the things. I don't want it to turn into a grind because that takes the joy out of it.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest challenges. The other one, we talked about technology a little bit, but getting the people together. Yeah. So if you wanted to do an interview, fair enough, you can schedule it. But an actual play where you've got 5 adults, or maybe 6, trying to find a slot in the diary to say, let's get together there and there and there. We want to do 3 sessions and they need to be within 3 weeks, can be very difficult and very frustrating because, as Phil was saying, sometimes you say, I want to play this now. I've got people. And well, when can we play it? In 6 months' time. And that by that point, yeah, maybe I've got some ADHD as well, don't know. But the enthusiasm sometimes has waned by that point.
Yeah, yeah. Or even getting the enthusiasm to begin focusing on that thing you want to do. If you know that you're going to struggle to find the players, it's hard to even pick the book up sometimes. But I think also to kind of piggyback off that, there's a challenge with importance and priority as well. So the Dark Orb is important to me. It's not the most important thing in my life, and that's on purpose. You know, it's not monetized. These things cost money, and it's an expensive train set. But it's more important to me than it is to anyone else that's on my show because it's my product. So when you're getting into scheduling, like you just said, other people kind of want to play a game. Sure, they're up for it. The impact of them not playing is negligible. So it's not necessarily important for them to prioritize that. And that's fine. You know, I'm not trying to disparage that. But it's the same with any role-playing game. The game is more important to the GM because they're the one who has to do all the heavy lifting than it is to any of the players. And that follows forward for interviews. It follows forward for any kind of collaborative recording, unless you have equal investment psychologically, let alone financially. It's always going to mean more either financially or reputationally or just in terms of passion to one person than it is to someone else. You have the same with musical instruments, with bands, with any kind of creative endeavor that requires collaboration. And that could be a challenge, and that can really affect motivation.
Interesting with the bands. I think the artistic vision in a band sometimes can be problematic. Yes. Yeah, that you say, oh, I really want to do this, and they really want to do this, and then there's a swing and domination of who gets their way, and after a while it just gets grating. And that you can actually notice the same in some of the actual play sessions, certainly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, where we have different styles of play swing back and forth, and people lose their enjoyment because of it.
Yeah. And that's where finding your troop of people sometimes is the easiest way because then you know that the people at the table for that particular game is going to be reliable. But also, I mean, we have that with the Dark Orb where at its heart, the focus should be on dark narrative role-playing, but not everyone who's involved in the Dark Orb actually is interested in dark narrative role-playing.
And so you were playing Pirate Borg.
Well, it can be kind of dark, and there's definitely some narrative going on. You can make it
as dark as you want.
But we don't, I mean, that was an effort in stupidity. But the counterpoint of that was Cult, which was very hard to record. The scheduling was difficult. It was very tight. And because I wanted to explore taking in more of a Red Moon role-playing approach to the production values,
it's a very interesting thing.
Insane.
Because most actual plays, certainly the ones I put out, I don't really do much with them.
Yeah, same.
We sit down, we have a little chat, we play. At the end, I say goodbye stream, we have a little chat, and that's it. I take the video, I
Yeah.
clip of the beginning, clip of the end. If we had a break,
Yeah,
I
chop
take that
out the
out,
middle
and
bit.
that's it. I
Yeah.
post it. I know a lot of people who do a lot of editing. And at the beginning of this year, I think it was, I was running a game of All Gods of Appalachia. Great game, yeah. I think it
beautiful,
was
yeah.
best leave the dead buried or something like
The
that. One of the
convention
adventures.
scenario.
It's one of the ones that they have issued, Monte Cook have issued, and it was a good scenario and all that. But the thing was that the guy who said, "Can you run this, or do you want to run this for us?" says, "We're not going to stream it. We're going to record it, and we are basically going to do this as an audiobook."
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
So as an audio play, we no cameras, no pictures to show unless you want to show us something. And the way that those 2 sessions, we ran 2 sessions, and that was cut into one story in the end, that was very, very different and very interesting, because people took time and they said, "Hang on, let me think about what I'm going to say," and then got into character and did all the voice acting with it, and then everybody had a breather, and then they could actually respond a bit later. You didn't have this need to keep the dead air out of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and was really good. Dice rolling was done, yes, but it was cut out in the end. There was just the narration of the consequence. So I was instructed before, and don't refer to dice rolls, just tell what happens.
Yes.
Don't say, "Oh, because you rolled this, you have this." Keep the mechanics talk out of it. And that was then, he took a lot of time, of course, to edit it in the end. He put music over it, he made lots of shots from it and stuff. It's a really, really nice result of it. And it was a very good experience to make, but I would not want to personally invest the time in cutting something like that together.
Thank you for saying that, because actually I was thinking, oh, it would be so much easier to just, do a podcast. But I never really thought about all of those cuts. I know that I'm a big fan of Me, Myself, and Die. He's a fellow Canadian from Edmonton and a famous voice actor who ended up moving to Vancouver, and now I think he's in Austin, and is coming out with a game, The Broken Empire. And he started by doing Iron Sworn, or I think he even did Savage Worlds before that. And he was doing a solo, but he had a number of cameras, and the amount of editing that he put into it was just amazing. It was a beautiful product, and what he's done has been great. But the amount of work, I also remember, and I forget who it was, but there was a group, or there was a person, she's in England, and she should be here, but I can't remember. But anyway,
She's in England, we might know her.
yeah, no. You absolutely know
Small
her.
place.
Oh my gosh.
Someone from our mutual Discord servers?
No, it's not Millie.
Okay. That's what I was thinking.
You do.
Man, I can't
What
think.
does that
But
tell about
she has a
girls in the hobby?
microphone, and she just has the same kind of stuff, and she does a lot of kind of scary games, and I think she did Solemn Veil. I'm sure she was the one who did Solemn Veil, and I apologize to her for not remembering, but absolutely fantastic. And it was done more like an audio presentation, even though there was video. It was better to not kind of be glued to the screen as it was to just listen in the background.
Was it solo or was it group play?
No, it was group play, and I just actually passed her by because I was just looking.
Have you guys come across Euphoria AP?
No.
Basically, they are UK and EU centered. So they're specifically saying we are this side of the pond. And they have a variety of different GMs and groups together. And they are always trying to be very diverse and very inclusive and all that sort of stuff. But I recently listened to their Coriolis the Great Dark, which actually was sponsored by Free League. And they paid them for that, to run it. And they did a 2-shot with it called Orpheus and Eurydice.
Oh, okay.
If you are looking for something like dark and narrative of what you can do with that game, I highly recommend it. And they were, again, doing dramatic voices and so on. But I think the cutting was relatively light. I
Yeah.
couldn't really detect whether there were big cuts in it at all. So for me, really, I don't have the time to sit there and edit.
No, no. And I
And
think
I have
unless you go on, sorry.
yeah, sorry. I've got a good friend in Austria, Brigitte, Carabas Crafts, she's called, and she does it. She recorded us, for example, playing Hard. We had a whale of a time with Hard, a really dark setting, really gritty and stuff. It was horrible what happened to everybody around us and to us, and what we did. But she then spent, on a maybe 2 hour session, she spent about 6 hours editing it.
Yeah,
And
that's pretty consistent with my experiences of it.
yes, that's not where my joy is.
And so for those who, for those who are interested in kind of getting into actual plays of some sort, you've got to remember that if you need to edit, or if you're going to edit, that there's a lot to consider in terms of your time commitment in that hobby. And it will take away from maybe your opportunities of doing other things, like life and your relationship, or your family,
Music,
or whatever,
band
right?
practice.
Yeah. How much time do either of you, and I know one of you does this, but how much time do you put into actually the framing of your videos? Like, I know that Frank has a Blood March coming up, and I know that he's already thought of backgrounds um, and what are they called? Screen
Overlays.
Overlays,
overlays.
yeah.
Yes. How much time, Phil, do you put into kind of overlay thought?
I'm coming from a more of a corporate IT perspective. So for me,
If it works, it's fine.
I try and find a template, yeah, that is relatively transferable, and swap out assets. So I'll swap out the backdrop, maybe change the color scheme, and throw some different like image files to effectively theme it. But it's not very often that I'll actually put too much effort into the overlay perspective. That's partly because I don't feel overly confident as a graphical creative. It's partly because I don't have a Photoshop license and I don't want to spend, $30 a month on Adobe, and I'm not quite so hot on other tools as I am with Photoshop.
Affinity
Yeah,
Suite
I
became
know.
free today.
Really?
Yeah, it's
And I
excellent.
paid
It's
for it.
excellent, actually. I paid
Fine,
for
that'll
it
do.
too.
Thanks very much. I've been meaning to pick that one up.
It's free, and I've been using it
It's really
actually for
good.
Yeah,
4 or 5 years. It's awesome.
yeah. The
The
thing is,
publisher is not quite the same as Adobe, but it
No,
no,
works.
exactly,
it works.
exactly.
It
And I
works
spent
fine.
years learning an Adobe.
But it isn't. Again, it's the time and also the graphic kind of
Yeah.
capabilities, right?
Exactly. And if you find a tool that works for you, it's difficult to swap away from that. And there are
Yeah.
so many different tools to accomplish what we're doing, and some of them are cheaper than others. And you kind of have to, you don't have to, but
I think to
often
get
the more expensive the tool is, the easier it is to get the polished result. And so it might be quicker to get the off the ground running with a paid monthly subscription product. But when you decide actually this is costing me too much, and I can't afford to be spending $1,000 a year on producing this thing that 4 people are watching, and you kind of have to kind of balance it back, that's when you have to actually start putting real time in.
yeah.
And there is that kind of point where you kind of shift from one to the other. At least in my experience,
Yeah.
that's the route that I took.
But thank you, Phil. Frank, you watching your videos throughout the years, you have had even a change in the past 2 years of the way that you approach overlays and stuff. So how
Okay.
have you found
Tell me
that?
more.
How have you found that?
Well, when I started, I basically just stuck my camera on the edge, and you could see my bookshelf behind me and so
Yeah.
on. And then I started fiddling about with lots of things. And layouts originally was just the strip of the Discord thing on the side. Yeah.
Yeah.
4 players stacked with their own cameras and stuff. But then I started saying, it shouldn't be that hard. I know lots of people who do a nice layout. Yeah, where you've got cameras sort of integrated into the background and so on. And so I started doing things like just having them placed, cameras different, cut out basically, and then place them as different sources. And then I started out seeing on couple of channels like everybody looks like they're just floating against the background. That looks nice.
Yeah.
Wonder how they do that. So I got in touch with Familiar Nerd, and he told me how he did it with a green screen, and then he filters it out. And I said, oh, cool, I'm going to do that. Then I started getting frustrated with that because sometimes it's very hard to judge. And I thought, okay, let's have a look what 3P do in Germany. And they basically just have the same thing. They have a nice background picture. They put that into your favorite graphics engine, doesn't matter, like Affinity or whatever. Then they cut out the requisite numbers of little squares, plonk it on, and then they have Video Ninja as a browser source pop into those frames nicely underneath the mask so they all look the same and so on. So, okay, that's not bad either. So that's what I started doing now.
So
but I have to say I do enjoy creating a good overlay. Yeah. So, for example, on Invincible, it looked gorgeous already on Foundry. Yeah, the Foundry system looks absolutely gorgeous. But then using the assets just from the quick start, I didn't go and find much else. I just stripped some of the assets out and then made the whole thing as a comic strip, and I tried to make us looking like we are in the comic things. And yes, it took a few hours, to be honest.
But it was, I believe, and even though I was part of it, I think it was a very good production in terms of, and also it played really well. Like we all had fun.
Yeah, we all had fun, and it all seemed to mostly work. What was I going to say? Oh, one thing that I also enjoy doing, but that costs a lot of time, is making little trailers.
Yes. And
I've been starting to, when I have the time and when I have the desire and when I have the ideas for it, then I'll make a little 30-second, 40-second clip just introducing the setting or the characters, like I did for the Expanse that we recently played, where the characters were just introduced and you had a little flyby of a spaceship and stuff. And that I post that as a sort of teaser, as a 30-40 seconds teaser. Got lots of views. Interesting enough, also got quite a few dislikes.
Well, and I was going to ask you about that.
I'm still not sure. But I mean, if I look at that trailer, I think it was like 75% like to dislike sort of thing. That's like one of my very lowest. If you look into the detail behind it, it might have been something, I can't do them numbers now, might have been 15 likes or whatever the requisite numbers of dislikes. So it's not many dislikes. But either the people didn't like because I used a semi-AI flyby of the big ship for it, possible, or maybe because they thought it was like a game, the new Expanse Osiris Reborn, I think it's called, or something like that, and then they were disappointed to find out it was just an actual play.
Yeah.
But who knows? The Coriolis one I've done now has got, again, like 100 and something views on the German channel, which is not bad. As many views, basically, as the Session Zero has. So they can really promote you. And Carabas, Brigitte, who I mentioned earlier, she's an absolute master of those intros. They look absolutely gorgeous when she makes them. And I'm just jealous that I don't.
So there were a couple of things that were going through my head. I know that, and Professor DM, or Professor GM, Dan, I remember him saying that he was not going to do any more 5e videos, and I've actually spoken to him and corresponded and stuff.
I remember that video.
And then, it was like a month later or a few weeks later, and he had put up something else, and then there was something else, and there was a lot of doom scrolling and stuff. And I don't want to pick on him in particular, but there's a, once you get to a certain level of income, there is more of a demand to maintain that. And therefore, you've got to get those clicks. And so there's much more of a drive to say, please subscribe, please click the like button, please, do all this, tell your friends and neighbors.
Okay. I'm not in that game yet.
No, but
my monthly earnings, roughly. I mean, since I started the YouTube channel, it's £150
from the entire time. Yeah,
in 5 years.
Yeah.
So that's that. And Twitch might be another £5 a month, maybe, or £4, something like that, and that's it. I mean, I probably almost got as much in direct Ko-fi donations, which used to come in for the Foundry stuff. Nobody ever gives a Ko-fi donation for an actual play. But if you give useful advice, they might give you something. So my total income over the last 5 years since I've been starting doing this might be something like 250 quid.
And
So you
that's
can forget
interesting
about the
for people
monetization.
who
You might actually switch it off. Make a point of saying, look, I'm not monetized, there's no adverts, but please donate.
Yeah.
If I could rely on YouTube not putting adverts in anyway.
Yeah, I
And
don't.
that's a real problem.
Is it Phil?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that you're going to. I mean, anybody who's starting out, or even who has like 3 or 4 years under their belt, is going to be paying for their, again, Foundry or Roll20 if you're a GM, your Forge or your possible online hosting. Then you've got another layer, which is your video. So you're either going to go for Streamlabs or Zoom. And then there are also complications because how are you going to produce it? Are you going to use OBS? Are you going to use Prism? How much are you willing to invest? And then there's also the games themselves, because you may have the books, but then you're also buying the modules and the assets to, and I think that there's a great amount of people, and I don't want to get into this too much because I think that this is a very hot button topic, but AI is such a difficult topic. And as creators who are not making money, it's a wonderful tool, but then there's also a lot of people who are very sensitive because our hobby is very much involved with the artistic community as well, who have been affected by this. So there's a tension there as well. And I certainly use AI, but I also know that I would love to be able to support artists, but the cost level, if I were up with Dave Thorovor or Questing Beast, then yeah, absolutely, I'd be supporting artists and doing those great things. But that's a difficult level to achieve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to leave on, and thank you so much for your candor over the past hour, but I want to ask about competitiveness and collaboration. So all three of us are in more or less the same realm. We're covering various smaller games, whether they be Cult or whether they're Year Zero engine game, whether there's something maybe not Call of Cthulhu, but let's say a BRP game that isn't as popular, Pendragon. How do you see the competitive nature versus a collaborative nature? And the reason why I mention this is Frank recently was very, very kind to invite me to be part of one of his videos. Maybe you can describe what it was that you invited me to.
I think basically YouTube has got this collaboration feature now, where you can basically say, look, I put this video on my channel, but I collaborated with Phil and with Douglas. So you can invite them as collaborator, which means that it feeds into their follower feeds as well. So that people who subscribe not to me, but to Phil, for example, would then also see the video, but it was the views and the audience would also be credited to them.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, if somebody clicks on it, it doesn't just count for me, it also counts for you. And collaboration, I think, is a huge benefit. I don't think I'm competitive at all, other than trying to possibly keep up with some of the stuff like publishing and saying, I want to be the first person to post something about this Foundry system or whatever.
Yeah.
But other than that, there's no competition really. Only recently I there's a setup of smaller German streamers. Yeah, so there's now one Discord, and everybody can discuss technology
nice.
on there, like we're doing now, or monetization, or tips and tricks, and be a platform for each other. Another thing I really enjoy on the collaboration, hasn't taken off yet, unfortunately, is the moonbeam.stream, where basically collaboration, 5, 6, 7, 10 streamers can all stream to the same channel and get their own revenue, but discoverability is such that you can visit one thing and say, okay, year zero engine streaming games or whatever, and whoever currently streams you can see. Yeah, so you're not like one creator has to feed one audience, but the audience can come to a TV channel essentially and see some roughly curated content, and you can have revenue sharing there and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot to be gained from it. There's inspiration, there's energy, there's players you can share. I don't think there's very much to gain at all from competitiveness.
I agree. I do think there are some potentially problematic things with the way that YouTube collaboration is currently configured. So, not that it would affect me with my tiny channel, but with YouTube monetization, only the uploader will receive monetization. So, if you've got 3 or 4 big player collaborators, actually only the person who has uploaded the video is going to receive
You have to take
monetization.
turns there. And that's
Absolutely.
better on Moonbeam, where you can basically
Yeah.
say, look, I'm collaborating, and even on this particular video, I might have somebody who's in the background just moderating. You can say, okay, moderator, you get this much of the revenue.
Absolutely.
5%, you get 20, 10% as a player, and as the GM, you get 50, whatever. You can actually configure it. So
And
I think the idea behind that is great.
for
agree.
those of you who don't know, Moonbeam is a relative. Well, it's a couple
It's
of
a
years
year old
old,
now,
a year old, I think, out of beta, and it is a different way of thinking about how to support our hobby of tabletop role playing games or pen and paper games.
Yeah.
And Frank, how have you found? I mean, I think that we know by what you just said that you enjoy using it. How have you found the growth? Is it starting? Do you see kind of people starting to realize that it exists?
Very few, to be honest. They have some public realms, as they call it. So they've got private one, they've got public ones, and they've got sort of ones where you can collaborate in. And the public is like a showcase. So, for example, when I stream, I can say, stream this to the tabletop RPG realm. So anybody who comes onto moonbeam.stream, goes to tabletop stream channel, can then see all the tabletop stuff working, like the categories in Twitch, essentially. Or you then have your realm where you say, okay, these are, I don't know, World of Darkness games. Or you can go to a particular streamer. So you've got lots of discoverability. But if you look at what's running on the tabletop, for example, any given night, there might be 1 or 2 games. So at this point, certainly, it doesn't have the volume. They recently started pushing back into normal games, Fortnite, to attract more people, I think. But I think the idea behind it is great. Some of the technical ideas are pretty good, but I haven't seen the volume there yet. But it would be lovely to see a bit more of that sort of idea.
I remember the campaign, the original crowdfunding campaign, and there weren't really that many people who backed it. And
I was one of them.
Yeah, you were. Yeah.
1/700th of the funding revolution.
700, 750, something like that.
Yeah, not loads. And yeah, I think because I haven't really done a great job of embracing even Twitch or any of the kind of other platforms. For me, YouTube just feels more relevant, particularly as I tend to end up purely from ADHD conversational sprawl, having much longer form videos, and YouTube I think is the most friendly for that before you go into that kind of Twitch territory. I find it easiest just to publish here these days, or onto YouTube these days. You mentioned, Frank, as well about only posting if you've got something to say, and I completely agree with you. But if you are going to just talk nonsense and you're happy with that, then Twitch is the place to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Talking
Oh,
nonsense on
absolutely.
Twitch.
Yes. for sure.
Any random click through 4 or 5 channels, and you know exactly what Phil means.
Yeah,
I I
exactly.
I actually pay for YouTube so that
Me too.
I don't have the commercials. It's the only we don't have a cable or TV or anything like that. I just watch YouTube, so I don't get the annoying commercials. But when I'm watching on a different YouTube channel when I'm doing something and trying to monitor, the amount of commercials is so daunting. And I know
Yeah.
that with Twitch, there's been a couple of times where I've been watching Frank doing something, and Twitch has just been like, "Oh, I can't. I love you, Frank, but I can't do this anymore," because
I
it's
don't see them.
incessant.
If you're a subscriber to the channel, you don't see them.
Yeah, I'm subscribed, and yeah, I get the commercials.
But as a little thing, not a follower, a subscriber.
Oh, oh, yes, yes,
Give
yes,
me a
indeed.
Prime Video on that app, abo, sub every week, sorry, every month, and then you don't need to watch any stuff. But just a side note on that one: if you're monetized on YouTube these days, and you have a channel, a video that's longer than I think it's 8 minutes, it will then say, "Do you want to place mid-video ads?" And you say, "Oh yeah, okay, I'll do that. Trust us to do the automatic thing." And then it says, "Okay, place them automatically." And then you look into it, and I might have an actual play of 2.5 hours. I think Vultures of Shem was one of the first ones I tried this on, which Douglas was playing in. And somebody wrote a comment and say, "Great stream, but I really can't stand watching adverts every 3 minutes." I said, "Really? That can't be right." So I looked at the setting. I opened it up, customize slots, like mid video slots. And seriously, the whole thing, I could show you here, the whole thing is plastered with ads every few minutes. So these days I say, yes, but every 40 minutes on YouTube, you're going to watch one ad, and that's it. You're not going to get more ads than that on my YouTube channel. If Twitch annoys you, do that. And if you go to Moonbeam, as far as I know, there are currently no ads. Because I don't think they've set that up yet.
Because they don't have enough to get the
Not
revenue.
yet. They don't want to upset us too much. Well, I see.
Yeah.
I see by the clock on the wall that it is.
We need to finish
We
up,
need
yeah.
to finish up and wrap up. I want to
Yeah,
mention.
I need to go
Yes.
watch the astounding Tony Wu. So.
Yes. Well, I do have. I was looking, and I'm sorry that I was obviously distracted. I was trying to find this channel, and I know that she's part of UK Gamers, and the UK Gamers channel, and it's driving me nuts. She's got
Put it
short,
in the
light
channel.
brown hair, and I know that she's spoken to Dave and Matt, and it's going to come to me after I get off.
Is she the one? What am I rolling?
Yes, what am I rolling? Yes. Yes, and she has the dice on her opening. My gosh, I am so sorry. So for those of you who are looking for places that are of interest, and I found of interest, I'm going to leave you with a couple of people that really inspired me. Pete from Garbag Games. I just know him from online. I have spoken to him and stuff, and been encouraging, but he's fantastic. And Adventures in Lollygagging. I think they're out of the States.
good.
They have a really good setup. I think Aaron is also part of Garbag Games, but they've got basically five boxes. They have 4 players, 1 GM. They rotate around. They have a great crew, and they do a lot of very different types of games. And so there's inspiration out there. Don't just stick to the same old people. Go and look for different different avenues for sure. Phil, do you have anybody that you kind of watch that isn't maybe one of the big YouTube people, but something that you really enjoy watching?
In terms of watching, no, I really struggle to follow actual play content to watch. But I will say that if you are someone who listens, then I don't think you can go wrong with either Red Moon role playing or Sweden roles. I have a lot of
Absolutely.
time for Sweden roles,
Yes.
Andreas and the team. And yeah, those are kind of my go-to for inspiration for how I want my table to feel.
Yes.
And that's kind of my goal with actual plays. Ideally, I like people. I like it when a cast has the courage to try and play in character.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of want to feel at the table more than that kind of the mechanical feeling of just rolling dice and narrating what's on
And
what's on the
The
sheet. And
tactical combat
yeah.
whiz or whatever.
And
exactly.
both of those podcasts that you mentioned, they're very likable people.
Yes.
Very
Yeah.
relatable, very likable.
Very
Absolutely
Swedish.
wonderful. Yeah, wonderful suggestions.
Yeah.
Frank.
And you were going to say,
Yes, yes, yes. Mm. Um, and I think that the German streamers, I'm very impressed with, and I usually put on the subs, but I'm very impressed with a lot of there's a llama, yeah, which are fantastic. And in English, Saba's Dungeon. Saba is German as well, but he does English, and he's fantastic. So there are a lot of people out there. I want to thank both of you very, very much. I asked them both about, I think it was a month ago, when would work out. This is our normal Thursday night playing for Frank and I, and so I appreciate the fact that you sat this one out. I know that you've got so much going on, Phil, and I thank you so much for taking the time for this. And it's been really nice to get to know you both in a different capacity. So, for those of you who have watched this far, thank you so much. And hopefully, there will be something else that you will enjoy not only here, but also on Frank and Phil's channels. So, take care. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Put questions, like, subscribe, all that stuff. So, take care. Bye.